For some background, I don't live in Missouri. Currently, I'm living in Mississippi, but I have several friends up north in Missouri who I'll occasionally go camping with. These two incidents happened about 2 years apart, and both happened in Missouri, and funny enough, one of my friends was present for both incidents. The first incident happened outside of Ozark. I don't remember the exact location, but I remember we took Highway 14-125 outside of Ozark, and it took us about 20 minutes or so to get from Walmart to Ozark, which is where we would meet up to travel to the site itself. It was me, a couple of friends from Mississippi who came up there with me, and our 3 mutual friends who live locally, and one of our local friends, Border Collie. This wasn't a dedicated campsite or anything. It was literally off the road, down a small trail down a steep hill in a valley with a creek running through it. One of my local friends who liked to scope outdoor sites for bouldering and rock climbing had found out about it, and his family had been coming to this place for a while, so he was pretty familiar with the area. So we pulled off on one side of the road, on a gated private use drive, grabbed our stuff, and hiked back and forth to our car to drop off our stuff at the campsite, which was a really cool cliff overhang facing out towards the valley. After setting up camp, we hiked across the creek to get to the other side of the valley, and we spent most of the day bouldering. We got back to our campsite around sundown, built a fire, cooked some food, and pretty much just chilled. Not sure if it's relevant or not because it doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the story, but while we were talking around the fire, we heard some kind of animal call across the valley that sounded really weird. It happened a few times, but only when someone was talking. None of us heard it clearly, but we all keyed in and noticed it at the same time and decided to shut up and listen in case we did hear it again. Of course it didn't happen again, and we agreed it was a tad creepy, but we didn't think much of it. We sat around the fire and we talked the rest of the evening, and around 9:30 the fire had died, and it was because it started to rain and we had no dry wood. We had bought some extra in one of the cars and some extra water and snacks. We made another few trips back and forth and up and down the hill from our camps to our car. And when we got back from our last trip from the cars, that's when things took a turn. I sat my load down and put some wood on the fire, and when I sat down, I saw a flashlight coming down the trail towards us. At first, I thought it was one of my friends who lagged behind the main group until I turned around and I saw all of my friends behind me putting their stuff down. I initially figured it was a cop or probably just the property owner coming down to tell us to get the hell out of there. But the guy steps in the light and he looks like a hobo, somewhere in his 60s maybe. Long hair, long beard, clothes covered in dirt. One of my friends called out something like, "Hey, who are you?" And instead of answering, he just stepped closer to the camp. One of my friends stepped closer to him and asked him again who he was, and the guy just said he was a neighbor. We asked if we needed to leave, because we all thought that this cave overhang might be where he usually stays, but he said no, and that he was just looking out for arrowheads and that he found plenty in the area of our campsite. He basically said, "Don't mind me, carry on," then started to hike straight down from the cave to the creek bed at the bottom of the valley. This was straight down a steep incline covered in trees, bushes, and even a little stream feeding into the creek. Now, it wasn't something that I would even do in broad daylight, so it would be just as weirder if a 70-year-old would go at it with only a flashlight in the middle of the night. I took that as a sign that he knew his way around the woods. Even then, he moved pretty slow, and we watched him from the cave until he disappeared. We debated on what to do because even though none of us really felt threatened because it was 6 guys with 3 hatchets and a machete versus an old man if he got violent, but it was so much more unsettling that he was just out there in the first place because this was a very remote area. So we decided to just leave in case he decided to come back while we were sleeping. And we grabbed as much as we could and started hauling essential stuff from the camp back to our cars. It took another 3 trips and probably 30 minutes just to get everything. And as we hauled our stuff back to the car, we heard the guy who would have been by the creek by now making wolf calls. Not in like a creepy werewolf way, even though it was still creepy, just like a guy doing his best imitation of a wolf. We finally got everything in our cars, and right before we got into our cars to leave, my 3 friends that were parked behind who traveled separately in their own cars suddenly yelled out, "We have to go now," and jumped in the car. We all jumped in our car and we tore it out of there back to Ozark, and we met at the Walmart parking lot to talk about what happened. They said that they seen another person with a flashlight approaching our cars while we were loading up. Our cars were across the road and up the hill from my camp, and the guy had gone down the creek below our camp, so there's no way that the old guy had looped around us and above our cars on the opposite side of the highway while we made trips to and from our car. We would have noticed because he would have had to go onto the trail unless he wanted to spend a good hour crawling up rocks and trees. Looking back, I'm convinced he was howling like a wolf to signal someone else across the highway to move to our cars. That means there had to be at least 2, or who knows how many weirdos chilling in the middle of nowhere in the Missouri Ozarks. This happened east of Ozark, Missouri, and likely somewhere between Oldville and Kiltner. Now this last story may be a little bit more mundane, but it still was a little bit interesting. This one happened at the Benedict Spring campgrounds outside of Lebanon. Me and a few of my friends, the different sets of friends except for the one guy who noticed the light coming down to the cars in the last story, who were camping and doing late night fishing on a river that runs close to the campsite. I don't remember exactly where we were on the river in relation to the camp, but I remember the campgrounds being behind us and across from us with thick forest on the other side of the river. While we were talking, we noticed a light on the other side of the river in the woods. I thought it was another late night straggler at first with a flashlight. Then I realized it was too high off the ground to be a flashlight. Then I thought it might be a street light or a light from a building, but there aren't any buildings or main roads from where we were. It definitely wasn't a headlamp. We watched it for a while until it disappeared. It wasn't creepy or anything, just really weird. I'm not sure exactly what it was until I heard about the spook light, which is also in Missouri and sounds an awful lot like what we saw. Any extra insight or knowledge about weird things going on in that area would be a welcome, or similar stories on things like this. I'm sure there's a lot going on in these woods that people don't really know about.
Spook light. The spook light.
They call them the spook lights.
The infamous spook lights.
You will see a ball of light that will be on one side or the other side.
Cross the creek, go around the house, come in the witch's holler, 3 miles and you're here.
Dean Walker is talking about how to find the Joplin spook light, a 4-state mystery he's personally witnessed at least 50 times since he was 5 years old.
We are in Miami, Oklahoma at the Spook Light. There's a bunch of different names online. Hornet Spook Light, Tri-Area, the Devil's Promenade.
There are tales that it could be a miner. There are tales that it's a Civil War soldier. There are tales that go further back with some of the native lore that it's, Indian lovers or Indian princess who's lost, that kind of thing. The story that is repeated the most is of a farmer that went out looking for his lost children. And he took a lantern and the children never came back and he never came back. And so the light is the farmer's lantern and he's looking for his lost children.
Whatever the story, there's a draw to young and old to try to figure out the mystery behind the light.
We can say what it's not a lot easier than what it is.
Goes in the ground somewhere down there. We never did find it. Went all over looking for it. We did find a bunch of graves, but we didn't know if it come out of that cemetery or what.
Guy, I see it in the tree.
You see it in the tree?
I see a light in the tree.
Are you looking straight up?
No, it's towards the bottom of the tree. Do you still see the light in my camera?
Yeah.
Now it's gone.
Which tree?
This big one. Right here. It was right at the base of it. Oh, whoa. I feel really cold. Like it passed through me. It was so cold.
Oh.
I am freezing right now. Freezing. I saw something in this tree. Whether what I encountered was the spook light or not, the legend remains a popular topic for 4-state locals like Walker.
Do you think it's an evil entity or?
Just a mysterious light floating around.
Good evening, everyone. This is Yuri K, And this is the end of the video. Please leave a comment and let us know your opinions on the matter. If you happen to like this content, please check out our other videos. Make sure you like and share amongst your friends and family to help our community grow. You happen to be new to this channel? Please make sure you subscribe. It's free and you can always change it in the future. You have some terrifying story suggestions? If so, make sure that you send it to my email, fearofthedarkstories@gmail.com, and I'll feature it in a future segment. But you guys stay safe out there, and remember to always be afraid of the dark.